Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked on Wolves. This is the post-game podcast. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the Timberwolves' 15-point win over the Denver Nuggets. And it really wasn't that close, leading by as many as 30 points in the fourth quarter. Karl-Anthony Towns was fantastic. The bench was phenomenal. The bench, in fact, outscored the Timberwolves' own starters in the first half of this game. The Wolves' defense was fantastic. Don't let the Nuggets' 115 points fool you. A lot of that was garbage time. Minnesota's defense was great. Jarred Vanderbilt had something of a revenge game against the team that acquired him on draft night a few years ago. There's lots to talk about on the post-game pod. Welcome in. You are Locked on Wolves.
You are Locked on Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked on Wolves podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked on Wolves. I'm also the editor of Dunking with Wolves, the Timberwolves site and the Fansided Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Hump Day. And this is a Victory Wednesday for Timberwolves fans. The Timberwolves beat the Denver Nuggets on Tuesday at home at Target Center by 15 points, 130 to 115. We're going to break down the win today. There's lots to talk about. This was a really fun game and an incredibly dominant performance for the Timberwolves, really, for 3+ quarters in this game. So we're going to break it all down. Key takeaways, individual studs and duds, all that good stuff is upcoming. First of all, though, thank you for making Locked on Wolves your first listen each and every day. Of course, Locked on Wolves is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. You can find Locked on Wolves and all of your favorite Locked on podcasts. You can also follow this show on Twitter at Locked on T-Wolves and at Beecken. That's with 2 B's, 2 E's, C-K-E-N. All right, so setting this one up, the Timberwolves did get Patrick Beverley back for this game. He had missed the last, I think, 5 games. He was injured 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, so just under 2 weeks ago when he had the sprained ankle, and he returned to the starting lineup. Still no D'Angelo Russell, out with the shin contusion. He had been listed as doubtful. Remember, he got hurt last Thursday, so he's missed now 3 games and nearly a week with the shin contusion. And he was listed as doubtful, did not play. Beverley was back. And everybody else for the Timberwolves rotation, I guess Josh Okogie was also out, kind of, been in and out of the rotation all season. But in terms of rotation, guys, only Russell missing the game for the Nuggets. No DeMarcus Cousins, who's become an important part of their bench unit in Denver. Nikola Jokic was listed as questionable, although I don't think anybody ever really thought he wouldn't play. Although, interestingly, Denver does have a game Wednesday night in Salt Lake City against the Jazz. So, the Denver could have gone the route of not having Jokic play. Instead, he played, and he played quite a bit, even in the second half of what was nearly really kind of was a blowout by the third quarter anyway. But at any rate, this was a relatively healthy Nuggets team. Obviously, no Jamal Murray all season to this point, no Michael Porter Jr. in a very long time. But full strength in terms of the team that has now won 5 straight, had been kind of surging in the Western Conference and solidifying that 6th spot, trying to get to the 5 spot in the West. A team not as good as people expected them to be by and large, but still very good. Still a team that easily could have won this game, and Minnesota put them away pretty early. Early in the game, it was just really sloppy. Minnesota was sloppy, was a little bit sloppy offensively themselves, just in terms of missing shots. Denver turned the ball over a lot of unforced errors. Minnesota's defense was active, but Denver was just uncharacteristically sloppy on offense. And in a lot of games, the Timberwolves defense turns teams over. That wasn't necessarily happening in the first quarter. Denver was mostly doing it to themselves. Still, the Timberwolves' active play on the offensive end of the floor in the first quarter, they were rotating crisply. They were playing hard defensively, kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. And even if they didn't generate as many turnovers in the second and third quarter, as the Timberwolves built that double-digit lead that eventually ballooned to 30 early in the fourth quarter, the defensive activity, and this is not the MO of the Wolves defense this year, right? Most of the year, the Timberwolves defense has been successful in wreaking havoc by forcing turnovers, scoring in fast break, broken floor opportunities, points off of turnovers, etc. And the actual set half-court defense, if they weren't getting steals or blocking shots, forcing turnovers, not a good defensive rebounding team, the Timberwolves have allowed a really good 3-point shooting percentage for opponents. So bad for the Timberwolves defense over the past couple of months after a hot start to the year in that regard. It's been the biggest issue for Minnesota is if they can't turn teams over, I should say the biggest defensive issue. If they can't turn teams over, how do they stop teams? Well, this was a good example of that. 9 turnovers for the Nuggets in the first quarter. They finished the game with what? With 12 turnovers. So only 3 turnovers the rest of the game for Denver, 9 in the first quarter. And yet the Wolves only led by 2 at the end of the first. So this wasn't a lead that was entirely driven by gambling for steals and, forcing turnovers left and right. This was just good old fashioned defense as the game wore on. Notably, though, the Timberwolves were up by 2 points when Nikola Jokic got his first arrest late in the first quarter. The Nuggets were up by 2. When he came back in the second quarter, Minnesota was up by 13. That is a plus 15-point swing in favor of the Timberwolves with Jokic off the floor. And that was really, well, obviously, because Jokic was off the floor. That was was a big reason for it. But also just the Timberwolves bench completely outclassed the Nuggets bench, and it wasn't even close. Of course, garbage time helped buoy those numbers a little bit for Denver. But when it mattered, it wasn't close at all. In fact, in the first half as a whole, Minnesota's bench scored 39 points. Their starters scored 30. Minnesota's bench outscored their own starters 39-30 in the first half of this game. And it really was the whole bench. Taurean Prince himself had 14 points in the second quarter, all by himself. Jordan McLaughlin was great. He had, I think, 5 assists by halftime to go along with 7 or 8 points. Naz Reid was very good. The lead, the Timberwolves used an extended 26-8 run. It was 20-4, ultimately 26-8 run that allowed them to take a 60-37 lead. So the biggest first half lead was by 23. It got down to just 18 points at halftime. But again, it was all about the Timberwolves bench unit. It was all about the Timberwolves activity defensively, especially in the second quarter. And then in the third quarter, the Timberwolves built it a little bit higher. Karl-Anthony Towns got his 4th foul, stayed on the court for a while, went back to the bench midway through the third, and then the Nuggets made a bit of a push, getting the lead. It was up to 28, I think, at that point. They got it back down to 97-98, so a 19-point lead for Minnesota. They shaved 9 points off the deficit with Cat on the bench and Jokic in the game. But those roles flipped in the fourth quarter. Jokic took his rest. Cat came back in as Chris Finch, the Timberwolves head coach, tried to close things out. And that's basically what happened. With no Jokic on the floor, Towns scored an easy 7 points himself to start the fourth quarter. Then Malik Beasley got hot after having just a couple of buckets in the first half. He finished the game with 12 points, 4 made threes against his former team. And the Timberwolves led by as many as 30 before they called off the Dogs, and ultimately garbage time made this just a 15-point game. But a really impressive performance from about midway through that first quarter through the rest of the game, save for a couple of minutes in garbage time. The Timberwolves were phenomenal in this game. Very impressive against a very solid opponent, a divisional opponent. The Timberwolves are now 15-10 at home, which is notable. They're over 500 again, 26-25. Of course, they were last week after they beat Portland, but now they're back over 500 at 26-25 with some very winnable games on the horizon and sitting in a good spot. Next, I want to talk key takeaways. I've got 3 big ones, and then we'll do individual studs and duds, as we always do here on the show. First, though, we have to talk about our great friends, the title sponsor of today's show, and that, of course, is Prize Picks. All right, NBA fans and Timberwolves fans, are you looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA? Then you need to try the award-winning app Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know you will too. It's super easy to use. You just pick 2 to 5 players. You pick an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times in any entry. It's really simple. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in just 60 seconds or less. It really is that easy. Prize Picks also offers safe and fast withdrawals. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds, even steals. Also, you can do mixed sport entries. So I love this during football season. You've still got the Super Bowl coming here in week and a half or so, 10 days, where you can pick, we'll call it the Super Bowl, whatever NBA games are that day. You could pick Karl-Anthony Towns over on points. You could pick Joe Burrow over on touchdowns. The same bet, across sports. You pick both of those players, and you can end up winning with a cross-sport bet. Also, Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. Users get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. You must use code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans and Locked On Wolves listeners. Sign up today. Use the code NBA for $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. That's it. Again, code NBA. If a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point, you'll get $50 for free. All right. Next, let's also talk about our friends over at TurboTax, our new friends at TurboTax. People think unusual circumstances mean complicated taxes, but for TurboTax Live experts, that's what makes things interesting. We all have unique lives, whether you invested in crypto for the first time this year, own an up-and-coming small business, or are raising rambunctious twins. Luckily, TurboTax Live has experts who can answer your tax questions, walk you through the whole process, or do your taxes for you from start to finish. They help you get every deduction you deserve, no matter your unique situation. And you can talk to a TurboTax Live expert through your phone or computer without leaving your house. TurboTax Live experts are here to help you however you need. And if you need an extra hand your taxes off to them. They'll do it all for you. To TurboTax Live experts, an interesting life can mean an even greater refund. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Do your thing. They've got your taxes. Into it. TurboTax Live. All right. Let's get into key takeaways here from the game. First of all, though, a reminder that very grateful for you making Locked On Wolves your first listen. Also, don't forget, the NBA trade deadline is just a week from this Thursday. That's Thursday, February 10th at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. The Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 1 p.m. Central to 3 p.m. 1 p.m. Central to 3 p.m. Central. That's 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so you know when they go live. All right, let's talk key takeaways from Wolves Nuggets here. I've got 3 good ones here. Number 1, let's talk about defense. So, you quick glance at the box score, maybe didn't watch the game. You think, all right, they gave up 115. They simply outscored them. Well, yeah, they did outscore them. That's why they won by 15 points. But that 115 is a very inflated number. I don't know what this is going to do to the Wolves' defensive rating, but this was one of the more impressive defensive performances of the season, in my opinion. And I know that seems maybe a little crazy, but it was really good. The first quarter, again, Denver, I talked about this in the first segment, but some self-inflicted wounds for the Nuggets. But Minnesota's point of attack defense was very impressive in this game. Really everybody across the board. Patrick Beverley, he picked up 3 early personal fouls and didn't play at all in the second quarter of this game, but Beverley was good. Anthony Edwards was okay in the first half defensively. Jalen Noel was very good defensively, which we can't always say about Jalen, but that was fantastic. Jordan McLaughlin, very good off the bench, playing a key role with the Beverly foul trouble, and obviously no D'Angelo Russell. Switching on the perimeter when they needed to, but for the most part, the point of attack defenders were fighting through ball screens and sticking to the hip of their assignment. Timberwolves were contesting threes throughout the night to the point of I don't know how they didn't foul. I think they only fouled 1 3-point shooter all night, and it was when the game was basically over in the fourth quarter. I mean, they were in the just in the space of Nuggets 3-point shooters all night long. The low man did a fantastic job of stepping up and forcing the ball out of the ball handler's hands. There were multiple possessions early in the game. Jokic had 6 turnovers just in the first quarter, which is insane, and he should have had a couple more. But the Timberwolves were doing such a good job of just stepping up to the middle of the paint, making Jokic pass the ball, get the ball out of Jokic's hands, make him try and be a hero instead of, passing the ball, then be a hero as a scorer. And it wasn't just Jokic either, but any ball handler for the Nuggets or anybody trying to initiate offense, the Wolves, anybody that got into the paint, the Wolves low man was doing a great job of stepping up. The defense was helping backfill behind the low man who was stepping up, and yet still get out to the perimeter and contest jump shots. It forced Jokic and others to make really difficult passes. And while the wounds were largely self-inflicted, sloppy passes, bad decision-making, etc., from Denver early in the game, the Timberwolves defensive activity encouraged that. And then throughout the game, the activity level stayed high for the Wolves defense. The scrambling, just the overall effort on the defensive end. And we've seen that, a lot of games. We talked about this last week. I think it was the Phoenix game, maybe, where they played fairly well. There were just a couple of lapses. It was like 38 minutes of really good defense. but you lapse for 8 to 10 minutes against any decent team, and you are on the verge of you might lose that game. Oh, the Portland game actually is the best example. The Portland game last Tuesday that the Wolves ended up winning. They were up double figures in the fourth quarter. They're up double figures in the third quarter. And twice the Timberwolves defense had like this 5 to 8 minute lapse where they just weren't good. But then they locked in the rest of the game. They locked in on the final possession in the Portland game to win, to hold on and win that game against the Blazers last week. But they can't string together more than that. It seems like the 36 to 38 minutes of good defense per game. This was essentially like 44 minutes of great defense. Take out garbage time. Maybe the very start of the game wasn't as good, or the first part of the first quarter. But by and large, this was a fantastic defensive performance against a really good offensive Denver team. I mean, Denver was a top 10 or 10th in offensive rating, according to Basketball References metric coming into this game. And the point of attack defense, the scrambling on defense, the low man help was phenomenal for the Timberwolves in this game. On the other end of the floor, smart offense from Minnesota. It was simple. Timberwolves didn't do anything crazy in this game. No D'Angelo Russell. Meant a lot of Anthony Edwards initiated early, but Edwards had a very quiet night. We'll talk more about that later. There's just a lot of, and the Nuggets' poor defense made this a lot easier, to be clear, but the Wolves didn't overthink it. They didn't get too, it's sometimes the team takes on the worst parts of Karl-Anthony Towns' characteristics on the floor when it comes to like, hey, in the case of Towns, in other games, it might be, hey, I can beat this smaller guy I have on me. I can beat this bad defender. And he gets overzealous, gets called for an offensive foul. The Timberwolves as a team do that sometimes when they think, okay, we can beat this team. They're not playing well defensively. Let's do too much. Let's make too many fancy passes. Let's throw a bunch of alley-oops. Let's shoot threes, in a broken floor situation with 21 seconds on the shot clock, instead of getting the ball into the paint, or instead of finding, a better shot. They didn't really do that in this game. It was simple. It was driving kick, a lot of driving kick game to find the open player. And all it took was a couple of swings of the ball around the perimeter. The Nuggets were not fast defensively. They were not just a step slow. They were probably a step and a half slow all night. Uh, you know, Towns was posting and reposting. I mean, he had a couple of post-ups where he got the ball smack dab in the middle of the paint and scored with ease against a smaller Nuggets defender. The Wolves across the board were finding open shooters in the corners, whether that was Malik Beasley, Taurean Prince, Jaden McDaniels. They were finding guys who are open on the perimeter to knock down threes. McDaniels actually didn't have any made threes in this game, but he had a couple of attempts from the corners. And the Wolves, just to a man, we're doing a good job of finding the open guys, especially in the corners. Smart offense, simple offense, and effective offense. And that worked in this game. My last key takeaway is the other guys. I talked a lot about the other guys in the win on Sunday against Utah. If those like third tier players, you've got your Towns, Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and you've got your next kind of level of guys that generally play well, Jarred Vanderbilt, Patrick Beverley, activity guys who can pitch in offensively, which Vando will talk more about. Haven't talked about him at all really yet, but he was phenomenal in this game too. And then you've got your question marks, your Taurean Princes, Jaden McDaniels, Malik Beasley, when healthy. Sometimes Josh Okogie gets lumped into that category. Jordan McLaughlin in this case, because he was in the rotation. Are these guys, Naz Reid, are these guys going to step up and play like they can and like they need to for the Timberwolves to be consistently successful? We've seen Prince play a lot better of late. The other night, the Timberwolves had a couple of those guys step up against the Jazz. In this game, it was Taurean Prince, and it wasn't just him. But Taurean Prince was great. We'll talk more about him next segment. But 23 points, 9 rebounds for Prince, 6 made threes. But the other guys played well too. Naz Reid had 12 and 5 in 20 minutes. Malik Beasley had 12 points, 4 made threes against his former team, pitched in 5 rebounds in 24 minutes. We don't always see that from Beasley. And Jaden McDaniels isn't going to fit into my studs or duds in this game. He had a really unsexy game from a stat line perspective. 4 points, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks. It's kind of a mini stat stuffing game, but he shot just 1 of 7 from the field, missed his only 2 3-point attempts, but he was active. He was really good defensively. Both of his blocks came in quick succession with one another, were really impressive. His one make was a really nice kind of up and under reverse layup where he had a really nice crossover on the left side of the floor, went underneath, made the reverse layup, got the and one, and converted the free throw. But this was an interesting and intriguing game from Jaden McDaniels after following up a really strong performance on Sunday. So I thought that was notable, but all of the other guys have been playing better of late, and that's been huge with no D'Angelo Russell. And before tonight, before the Nuggets game, no Patrick Beverley for the last few games. So any level of consistency from Prince, Beasley, McDaniels, Naz Reid, if they can find a level, and again, they're not going to make 6 threes a night every night like Taurean Prince. They're not going to necessarily have the kind of night Jaden McDaniels had the other night against Utah. But any level of consistency, 70% of what they've been doing the last couple of games would be a huge boon for Minnesota here moving forward. And I think we need to keep calling that out as we see it happen. All right, let's close the show today by talking about individual studs and duds, as we always do. First, though, let's talk about our friends at Built Bar. It's the new year. That means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill, you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By like week 3, you might be thinking, this is not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Well, Built Bar has you covered because Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 net carbs, plus 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Here's an idea for the new year. Go to all your secret treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, wherever they might be. Throw out all the sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. So when you're craving a snack or a treat, you can reach for something that's healthy and tastes incredible. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. There's so many flavors to choose from: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and many more. In fact, Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors. So check out built.com often to see what's new. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's talk individual studs and duds from Wolves Nuggets. A pretty easy one to call out here today. Karl-Anthony Towns, really good. 24 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Only 1 turnover in 28 minutes for Towns. 24 points on 8 of 12 shooting. So he shoots what, 67% from the field, 1 of 3 on 3-point attempts, 7 of 8 at the line. Got to the line 8 times in 28 minutes. Again, 8 of 12 shooting is fantastic. Very much under control in this game. He did commit the 4 fouls, but I mean, it's hard not to commit fouls playing against Jokic and this Nuggets team. Another really impressive performance from Towns. He's stringing together these positive performances, and that really matters. It's good to see that as we're entering kind of like the dog days of the season, leading into the All-Star break, and coming out of the All-Star break will be important to keep that momentum. But a really solid game against Jokic. And Jokic, for his part, had a good game too. 21 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. He had 5 turnovers. I think I said earlier 6. 5 turnovers all in the first quarter for Joker, and 6 of 12 shooting, 8 of 9 at the line. So a good game for him too. But the Timberwolves really took him out of his comfort zone in the first quarter, and that threw the entire Nuggets offense out of whack for sure. Second stud for me, Jarred Vanderbilt. So good, especially early in this game when the Wolves needed the energy. It was a little bit sluggish to start. The Timberwolves were not converting on all of the turnovers that they were generating. They had 11 turnovers in the first quarter that they generated. So 11 Denver turnovers. Minnesota had only 11 points off those turnovers. But Jarred Vanderbilt provided the energy that Timberwolves needed to kind of carry them through that kind of slog of a first quarter. For the game, Vando had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. He only played 19 minutes. He had 18 points in 19 minutes and 9 rebounds in 19 minutes, 2 assists and 2 steals. The only knock was he missed a couple of bunnies right at the rim. I mean, literal just layups that rolled off the rim for Vando, and he missed a couple of free throws. But I mean, 18-9 with 2 assists and 2 steals in 19 minutes, sign me up. I mean, most nights he's going to play a lot more than 19 minutes. It was good for the Timberwolves that no starters had to play more than 28 in this one, by the way. But fantastic game from the former Nugget, Jarred Vanderbilt. The third stud for me in this one is Taurean Prince, 23 points, a season high for him on 8 of 12 shooting, 6 of 9 on 3-point attempts, 1 of 2 at the line, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals, 1 block for Prince and 2 turnovers. He was a game high plus 22. Nobody else was higher than a plus 18 for the Wolves or for the Nuggets, obviously. A plus 22 in 24 minutes for Taurean Prince. Not much more to say. I mean, he just got hot. It was a couple games ago. It actually might have been the Portland game. No, was it I think it might have been the Utah game on Sunday. It's running together now, but where he had the hot fourth quarter, where he had a couple of threes, a tough mid-range jumper, some big rebounds. I think that was just on Sunday. Prince is really strung together some nice games, and he is very clearly a key part of this rotation now moving forward for Minnesota. Also want to shout out the games for Naz Reid and Jordan McLaughlin. I mean, the bench was so good. Naz had 12 points, 5 rebounds, 5 of 7 shooting, made his only 3-point attempt, 2 blocks, 2 assists, and a steal. Jordan McLaughlin, he started last game. This game, he was back coming off the bench, but he played 26 minutes, to Patrick Beverley's only 15. That was foul trouble early and garbage time late, obviously. But McLaughlin had 9.7 assists, 0 turnovers for Jordan McLaughlin in this game. 9 and 7, 0 turnovers. He pitched in 4 rebounds and a steal, shot 4 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 on 3-point attempts for McLaughlin. He was a plus 18, which was the second best mark of any player that appeared in this game for either team. A really good game for Jordan McLaughlin. All right, duds. A little harder to figure on this one. I'm not going to hand one out. I refuse to do it in this game. I mean, Jaden McDaniel shot 1 of 7, but I already talked about him last segment. Active defensively, good otherwise, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 1 really nice and 1 reverse layup. Jake Layman played garbage time only. I meant to say Jalen Noel, 10 points, 3 assists, shot just 2 of 6. Kind of a meh night from Jalen Noel, but that's not dud worthy. I mean, nobody played poorly for the Timberwolves in this game. I mean, even Malik Beasley, slow first half against his former team, but very good fourth quarter, helped kind of push that lead from 19 back up, ultimately to 30 before it came back down to 15 by the end of the game. But Beasley and Towns were the two that keyed that run to solidify a 20-plus point lead late in the game. So good game from him too. So no duds. I'm going to just go ahead and call it a no dud game for the Timberwolves. A lot of fun, though. A lot of fun in this game. Next up for the Wolves, they head back out on the road after this brief 2-game homestand. They play at Detroit on Thursday. This is that weird home and home situation. So at Detroit on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central tip, of course. And then they're off Friday and Saturday again. They're off for the weekend, come back home to take on Detroit for a weird Sunday matinee on the 6th. So a 2:30 tip on Sunday. What we'll do that day, looking ahead now, I guess almost a week, is we'll do a post-game pod late Sunday. That will count as Monday's show, but we'll get that up Sunday evening. And then, of course, later this week, on Thursday's show, we'll preview the Pistons matchup. We have not seen Detroit all season, so we'll preview that. And then Friday's show will be the post-game pod from Thursday. And then, of course, next week, 2 games at Sacramento. So 4 consecutive games against 2 of the worst 5 teams in the league in Detroit and Sacramento. Very winnable games before the schedule gets a little bit tougher again after that. All right, that's all we have for you today here on the show. Thanks again for listening to Locked On Wolves. And, of course, a thank you for making it your first listen every single day. Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere, including YouTube, Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, and really wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. A reminder that Locked On Wolves is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. And while you make Locked On Wolves your first listen, hopefully you make Locked On Bets your second listen. It's your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.